At my wife's family work trip, I caught my wife kissing her male boss. My kids were playing right behind her, and her sister watched me. What I did left them on their knees. My name's Ryan Cooper, 38 years old, part-time husband, full-time human ATM, and apparently the world's most oblivious idiot. At least, that's what I'd discover soon enough. But right now, sitting in my garage on a Tuesday evening with grease under my fingernails and a beer that's gone lukewarm, I'm still living in blissful ignorance. You know that saying about ignorance being bliss? Yeah, turns out it's true until reality decides to drop-kick you in the teeth. My wife Lila works for an interior design firm called Elevation Interiors, and I swear to God, her family treats that company like it's the damn Vatican, and she's personally in charge of blessing the Pope's curtains. Every dinner conversation somehow circles back to fabric swatches, color theory, or whatever pretentious garbage her boss Grant is spouting that week. I've heard more about feng shui energy flow than any man should have to endure in a lifetime. But hey, she loves her job, it pays well, and it keeps her happy. Or so I thought. So when she came home last Wednesday, practically vibrating with excitement about their annual work trip to some luxury resort in the Keys, I figured it was just another excuse for her and her coworkers to take selfies with champagne flutes and call it networking. You know the type of trip, expense accounts, corporate buzzwords, and people pretending that drinking mojitos by a pool at 2 in the afternoon is somehow related to professional development. I'd seen the photos from last year's trip. A lot of sunset pictures, a lot of designer sunglasses, and exactly zero evidence of actual work being done. It's a team-building retreat, she'd explained, eyes glued to her phone as she scrolled through the resort's Instagram page. Very important for company morale and collaboration. Right. Because nothing says collaboration like umbrella drinks and hot stone massages. But here's the thing. This time was different. This time, I was actually free. My job as a mechanical supervisor at Patterson Industrial had just wrapped up a major project, and my boss Jerry, good guy, terrible poker player, had told me to take a week off before we started the next contract. A whole week. No emergency calls about broken hydraulic systems, no overnight shifts, no grumpy clients demanding I fix their equipment yesterday. Just 7 glorious days of absolutely nothing. And that's when the stupidest idea of my life hit me. Why not join them? I mean, think about it. Luxury resort, all expenses paid by the company, white sand beaches, and a chance to actually spend time with my wife and kids without the usual chaos of our daily routine. It seemed like a no-brainer. Plus, I figured the kids would love it. Me is 10 and obsessed with swimming, and Ben's 7 and obsessed with literally everything that involves running, jumping, or possibly injuring himself. A beach resort sounded like paradise for them. So I mentioned it to Lila that night over dinner. Chicken stir-fry, her specialty, which basically means she dumps a bag of frozen vegetables and some soy sauce into a pan and calls it cooking. The kids were arguing about something stupid, probably who got to use the iPad first, and Lila was doing that thing where she nods along to their argument without actually listening. "Hey, babe," I said casually, spearing a piece of broccoli with my fork. "I got that week off. I was thinking maybe I could come along on your work trip. You know, make it a family thing. The kids would love it." She looked up from her plate, and I swear, for just a split second, I saw something flash across her face. Panic? Fear? Surprise? Whatever it was, it disappeared so fast I almost thought I'd imagined it. Almost. "Oh," she said, blinking like I'd just announced I wanted to join a nun convent or become a professional mime. "Oh, that's great, honey. Really great. The kids they'll love it." Notice what she didn't say? "I'll love it." Or "that sounds wonderful." Or literally any variation of enthusiasm about her husband joining her on a romantic beach vacation. But I was too wrapped up in my own excitement to notice the red flags. They were there, waving frantically in my face, but I was too busy mentally packing my swim trunks to pay attention. Yeah, I grinned like an idiot. I figured it'd be fun. When's the last time we had a real vacation together? Plus, you know, free resort. Can't beat that. Right? She said slowly, pushing rice around her plate. Free resort. Can't beat that. She excused herself to make a phone call after dinner. Work stuff, she said. Probably had to let them know about the extra guests. I didn't think twice about it. Why would I? I was married to her. We had 2 kids together. Why wouldn't I be welcome on a company trip that explicitly allowed families? The next few days were a blur of preparation. I packed the car with enough stuff to supply a small army. Beach toys, floaties, 3 different types of sunscreen because apparently kids need different SPF levels than adults, swimsuits, regular clothes, fancy clothes in case there was some dress-up dinner thing, tablets for the car ride, snacks, more snacks, and then backup snacks for when they inevitably claimed they didn't like the first snacks I brought. Mia was bouncing around the house like she'd mainlined pure sugar, already planning her resort activities. Dad, do you think they have a water slide? Can we go snorkeling? Will there be dolphins? Ben, in typical 7-year-old fashion, was more concerned with important questions like, can I bring my Ninja Turtle action figures? And will there be pizza? I packed their bags while Lila worked late that week. Or so she said. 3 nights in a row, she didn't get home until after 9. Big project, she explained. Had to finalize everything before the trip. Made sense at the time. Makes me want to punch a wall now, but hindsight's always 20/20, isn't it? The morning we left, I loaded up our minivan. Yeah, I drive a minivan, judge me all you want, with enough luggage to suggest we were permanently relocating to the tropics. I was stupidly, embarrassingly excited. I had optimism. The genuine, pure kind that only an idiot husband who's about to discover his entire marriage is a lie can possess. I thought it'd be family bonding time. Quality moments with my wife and kids, building sandcastles and making memories we'd laugh about for years. Turns out, it was more like family betrayal, the live edition. But I didn't know that yet. Right then, backing out of our driveway with the GPS set for paradise and my kids singing along to some Disney soundtrack, I was just Ryan Cooper, loving husband and father, heading off on a surprise vacation. Spoiler alert, I was the one who was about to get surprised. The resort was absolutely, ridiculously, obscenely over the top. I'm talking the kind of place where they hand you a cold towel and a complimentary mojito the second you step out of your car, and some impossibly attractive person in a crisp white uniform asks if they can assist with your luggage, like you're visiting royalty instead of a middle-class family from Ohio rolling up in a minivan with Cheerios ground into the floor mats. The place was called Azure Bay Resort and Spa, which already told me everything I needed to know. Any place with Azure in the name is automatically charging you 300% markup on everything. I pulled up to the entrance. This massive circular driveway with actual marble columns and palm trees that looked like they'd been imported from somewhere more exotic than Florida, and immediately felt underdressed. I was wearing cargo shorts and a t-shirt that said, I turn screws because, you know, I'm a mechanic, and I thought it was funny. Lila shot me a look that could have stripped paint. Ryan, really? That shirt? What? It's accurate. I literally turn screws for a living. She pinched the bridge of her nose, that universal sign of wifely disappointment I'd become intimately familiar with over the years. Just try to blend in, okay? Blend in. Right. Because nothing says blending in at a luxury resort like a guy whose idea of a fancy dinner is Olive Garden on someone's birthday. The lobby was the kind of ridiculous that makes you wonder if rich people actually live in the same reality as the rest of us. Massive floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean, chandeliers that probably cost more than my mortgage, and furniture that looked too expensive to actually sit on. Everything was white and cream and beige, like they'd collectively decided that colors were for poor people. There was even a guy playing a grand piano in the corner, tinkling out some classical number that nobody was listening to but everyone was pretending to appreciate. Lila's company, Elevation Interiors, had booked an entire wing of the resort. An entire wing. For an interior design firm that, from what I could tell, mostly did rich people's vacation homes and corporate offices. But hey, what did I know? I just fixed the machinery that kept the world running while they argued about whether taupe or ecru better represented authentic coastal living. The check-in process took forever because apparently rich people need everything explained to them in excruciating detail. The amenities, the dining options, the spa services, the curated experiences, which, as far as I could tell, just meant overpriced activities you could do for free if you weren't obsessed with having someone else plan your fun. Ben was already antsy, tugging on my hand and asking when we could go swimming. Mia had her nose buried in her phone, probably texting her friends about how fancy everything was. Mr. and Mrs. Cooper, the desk clerk said with a smile, so white it probably came with its own warranty. You're in the Pelican Wing, room 304. That's with the company group. You'll have access to all resort amenities, plus the private company events throughout the weekend. Private company events, I repeated. Sounds thrilling. Lila elbowed me in the ribs. Hard. We hauled our mountain of luggage to our room. Well, I hauled it while Lila walked ahead with the kids, already on her phone texting someone. The room was nice, I'll give them that. 2 queen beds, a balcony overlooking the ocean, and a bathroom bigger than our bedroom back home. The kids immediately claimed the bed closest to the TV and started fighting over the remote. Some things never change, even in paradise. I'm going to check in with the team, Lila announced, already halfway out the door. Get the kids settled, okay? There's a welcome cocktail hour in an hour. Cocktail hour? I called after her, but she was gone, the door clicking shut behind her with a finality that should have bothered me more than it did. I spent the next hour trying to keep Ben from jumping on the beds and Mia from ordering $75 worth of room service. We finally made it down to the pool area, where the welcome cocktail hour was already in full swing. And by full swing, I mean a bunch of people in expensive resort were standing around with drinks, pretending they weren't already half drunk and silently judging everyone else's outfits. Infinity pools stretched out in every direction. Cocktails came with little umbrellas that served no actual purpose, and everyone, and I mean everyone, was dropping words like darling and fabulous unironically. I grabbed a beer from the bar because I refused to order something called a Sunset Passion Fusion, and surveyed the scene like an anthropologist observing a foreign culture. That's when I spotted her. Camille, Lila's sister, the human equivalent of a migraine. Camille was 29, impossibly thin in that way that suggested she survived on kale smoothies and Spite, and had the kind of personality that made you understand why some animals eat their young. She was wearing a white sundress that probably cost more than my car payment, oversized sunglasses perched on her head like a tiara, and she was holding a glass of rose like it was an Olympic torch. She spotted me immediately. Of course she did. Camille had a sixth sense for sniffing out situations where she could make someone uncomfortable. It was her superpower. That and making passive-aggressive comments disguised as compliments. "Oh, Ryan," she squealed, click-clacking over in heels that had no business being worn on pool deck. "You actually came. Lila said you were busy fixing tractors, or doing man things." Man things? Like I was some caveman who'd wandered out of the wilderness and accidentally stumbled into civilization. I resisted the urge to grunt and scratch myself just to complete the image she clearly had of me. "Yeah, man things," I said, taking a long sip of my beer. "Like paying for your Wi-Fi every time you visit and mysteriously forget your credit card." Her smile tightened. Score 1 for Ryan. "Well, it's just so surprising," she continued, eyeing my cargo shorts like they were made of actual garbage. "I didn't think this would be your scene. You know, with all the elegance. You'd be amazed what I can handle, Camille. I once survived an entire Thanksgiving with your mother. This is nothing." She laughed, but it was that fake tinkling laugh women do when they're mentally composing a group chat message about you. "Oh, you're hilarious. No wonder Lila loves you." Except Lila didn't love me. Or at least, not the way I thought she did. But I didn't know that yet. I was still operating under the delusion that my marriage was solid, that my wife was faithful, and that this trip would be a nice family bonding experience. I shrugged, playing it cool. Turns out the tractors can survive without me for a weekend. Shocking, I know. Camille's eyes darted over my shoulder, and her expression shifted, just for a second. It was a look I couldn't quite read. Concern? Warning? Amusement? Whatever it was, it vanished as quickly as it appeared. "Well, I'm sure you'll have a memorable time," she said. And there was something in the way she said memorable that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. She laughed again, raising her glass in a mock toast before sashaying away to terrorize someone else. Lila, who'd been standing about 20 feet away in a cluster of her co-workers, didn't laugh. Didn't even smile. She just watched me with this unreadable expression, like I was a puzzle she was trying to solve. And that told me everything I needed to know. Well, not everything, but enough to make me realize that something was very, very wrong. I just didn't know how wrong yet. By evening, the whole corporate circus was in full swing, and I was starting to understand why Lila had been so weird about me tagging along. See, there's this thing that happens at company retreats, a magical transformation where professional colleagues suddenly become intimate friends The moment alcohol gets involved and spouses aren't around to witness the questionable decisions. Except this time, a spouse was around. Me. And I was starting to feel like the unwanted chaperone at a high school dance. Lila was already deep into networking mode. And by networking, I mean she was standing uncomfortably close to her boss, Grant Turner, laughing at things that definitely weren't funny enough to warrant that kind of laughter. You know that laugh. The one women do when they're flirting but pretending they're not. Yeah, that one. The kind that makes every other man in a 50-foot radius feel like a complete idiot for ever thinking their jokes were actually amusing. Grant Turner. Even his name sounded like it belonged to a guy who'd never changed his own oil or unclogged a toilet. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with that perfectly styled hair that somehow looked effortlessly messy, but definitely cost $100 to achieve. Designer suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Shoes so shiny I could see my reflection in them, and a smile that screamed, "I've never faced a real consequence in my entire life." The man had that smug, corporate confidence that only comes from stock options, an expense account, and zero empathy for anyone making less than six figures. I watched him from across the pool deck, one hand resting casually on the small of my wife's back as he leaned in to whisper something in her ear. She laughed again, threw her head back, touched his arm, the whole 9 yards. And I'm standing there in my cargo shorts holding a juice box that Ben just handed me because he wanted a Coke instead, feeling like the world's biggest chump. "Dad, can we go to the beach?" Mia tugged on my shirt, her eyes pleading. "Please? Mom said we could build sandcastles." I looked down at my daughter, then back at my wife, who was now giggling at something Grant said while sipping what looked like her third glass of champagne. Yeah, she looked real busy with those sandcastles. "Sure, kiddo," I said, forcing a smile. "Let's go build the best damn sandcastle this resort has ever seen." Ben perked up immediately. "Can we make it have a moat? And towers? And a drawbridge? Buddy, we're going to make it so epic that other kids will weep with jealousy." So that's how I spent my evening. Crouched in the sand with a plastic shovel and bucket that cost $8 at the resort gift shop, which was approximately $7.50 more than they should cost, building an elaborate sandcastle fortress while my wife did whatever the hell she was doing with her boss. The kids were happy at least. Mia was incredibly focused on getting the towers exactly right, and Ben was mostly just smashing sand into vague castle-shaped lumps and declaring them perfect. Other families were scattered around the beach, normal families where both parents were present and participating, like some kind of foreign concept I'd apparently forgotten existed. There was a dad teaching his son to bodyboard in the shallow waves, a mom applying sunscreen to her daughter's nose for the 17th time, a couple walking hand in hand along the shoreline like they actually enjoyed each other's company. And then there was me, the solo parent, the guy whose wife was too busy networking to spend time with her own children. "Where's Mom?" Ben asked around 7:30, looking around like she might suddenly materialize from thin air. "She's at a work dinner," I explained, adding more sand to the moat. "Very important business stuff." "But we're on vacation," Mia pointed out with the kind of logic only a 10-year-old can deliver. "Why does she have to work on vacation?" "Good question, sweetheart. Really good question. Sometimes grown-ups have to do boring work stuff even on vacation," I said, which sounded reasonable until I actually thought about it. Then it just sounded like a giant load of crap. We finished the sandcastle around 8. I took approximately 47 photos because that's what you do when you're trying to prove to yourself that you're a good dad, even if you're apparently a terrible judge of character when it comes to your spouse. Then we headed back to the room, got the kids showered and into pajamas, and I let them watch a movie while I sat on the balcony, staring at the ocean and wondering when exactly my marriage had become this hollow thing I barely recognized. By 9 o'clock, Lila still hadn't returned. The kids were passed out. Ben sprawled across his bed like a starfish, Mia curled up. With the stuffed dolphin she'd convinced me to buy at the gift shop for a price that should be illegal. I sat there in the dark, listening to the waves and feeling increasingly stupid for not seeing this coming. I pulled out my phone and texted her. "Everything okay?" 3 little dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, a response. "Just working. Don't wait up, red heart. Just working." With a little heart emoji, like that made it all better. Like that made it normal for a married woman to be out until after 9 on the first night of a family vacation. Funny thing about that text. It didn't say miss you, or wish you were here, or sorry I'm missing bedtime with the kids. Just don't wait up, with a heart emoji that felt about as sincere as a corporate mission statement. I sat there staring at that message for a solid 5 minutes, and that's when it really started to sink in. The weird reaction when I said I'd join the trip. The late nights at the office leading up to this. The way she'd been glued to her phone for weeks, always tilting the screen away when I walked by. The fact that she'd barely made eye contact with me since we arrived. I didn't know working involved wine glasses and candlelight, but apparently I'd missed that memo. I pulled up Instagram. Yeah, I know, boomer move, and searched for the resort's hashtag. Took me about 30 seconds to find what I was looking for. Someone from her company had posted photos from the team dinner. There was a long table on some fancy terrace overlooking the ocean, lit by candles and string lights, everyone dressed up like they were at a wedding. I zoomed in, scrolling through the candid shots. There, third photo, Lila and Grant, sitting next to each other, his hand on her knee under the table, her head tilted toward him, laughing at something, her hand resting on his forearm. The body language wasn't professional colleagues. It was people who've definitely seen each other naked. I should have been angry. Should have stormed down there and made a scene. Should have done something other than sit on that balcony in the dark, listening to my kids sleep and feeling my entire world shift beneath me like sand eroding under waves. But I didn't, because I'm not the explosive type. Never have been. I'm the guy who fixes problems methodically, step by step, analyzing what's broken and figuring out how to either repair it or replace it entirely. And right then, staring at that photo, I realized my marriage wasn't broken. It was already gone. I just hadn't noticed until now. So I sat there, made a mental note of everything I was seeing, and started planning. Because if there's one thing I'm good at, it's taking things apart and seeing exactly how they work. And I was about to dismantle my wife's perfect little lie piece by piece. The next morning arrived with the kind of obnoxious cheerfulness that only tropical destinations can provide. Bright sunshine, chirping birds, and the smell of ocean air mixed with overpriced resort breakfast buffet. I woke up to find Lila already in the shower, humming some pop song like she didn't have a care in the world. Like she hadn't spent the previous evening playing footsie with her boss, while I built sandcastles with our children. The audacity of it all was almost impressive. She emerged from the bathroom in a cloud of expensive perfume and steam, wrapped in one of those plush resort robes that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. Her hair was still damp, and she had that post-shower glow that I used to find attractive, but now just made me wonder if she'd looked like that yesterday morning too, and if so, whose shower she'd been using. "Morning, honey," she said brightly, leaning down to kiss my forehead like we were starring in some wholesome family sitcom. The company's hosting a family brunch at 10. Very casual, just the team and their families getting to know each other. Casual, right? Because nothing says casual like a mandatory corporate bonding experience where everyone pretends to like each other's kids and swap stories about their lives that are 50% embellished and 100% boring. Sounds great, I said, my voice flat enough to iron shirts on. If she noticed my lack of enthusiasm, she didn't show it. The kids were already awake and bouncing off the walls with that inexhaustible energy that only children possess. Ben was demanding pancakes immediately, and Mia was trying to decide between 3 different outfits like we were attending a state dinner instead of a breakfast with a bunch of interior designers who spent their days arguing about throw pillows. We made our way down to the resort's beachfront pavilion around 10, where the company had set up this elaborate brunch spread that made me question everything I thought I knew about corporate budgets. I'm talking made-to-order omelets, fresh fruit carved into elaborate shapes, a waffle station, 3 different types of bacon, and champagne for the adults because apparently day drinking is considered festive when you're on a corporate retreat. The pavilion was crawling with Lila's co-workers and their families, a whole parade of people I'd never met and had zero interest in knowing. Everyone was doing that fake friendly thing where they introduce themselves and immediately forget your name, then spend the next 10 minutes trying to one-up each other's vacation stories or brag about their kids' accomplishments. "Oh, you're Ryan," one woman said, extending a hand with nails so long they looked like weapons. "Lila talks about you all the time. You're the mechanic, right?" The way she said mechanic made it sound like I cleaned sewers for a living. I shook her hand anyway because my mother raised me to have manners, even when dealing with people who clearly think they're better than you. "Mechanical supervisor," I corrected with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. I keep the machines running that make your comfortable life possible. Her smile faltered. Lila shot me a warning glance. I ignored it and grabbed a plate, loading it up with enough bacon to give a cardiologist nightmares. Grant was there, of course, holding court near the mimosa station like some kind of preppy king addressing his subjects. He was wearing linen pants and a polo shirt that probably cost $300, but was designed to look casual. His whole vibe screamed, "I summer in the Hamptons," even though I'd bet money he was from somewhere deeply mediocre like Connecticut or New Jersey. Lila gravitated toward him like a moth to a flame, laughing at something he said before I'd even finished filling my plate. She looked radiant. That's the word that kept popping into my head. Radiant. The kind of glow you get after a night that definitely wasn't spent sleeping alone in a hotel room with your husband and kids. I spent the next hour playing the dutiful spouse, making small talk with people whose names I forgot immediately, watching my kids devour their weight in waffles, and observing my wife pretend I didn't exist. She was in her element, smiling, networking, touching people's arms in that way that's supposed to seem friendly, but actually just establishes dominance. And Grant was always there, hovering near her like a well-dressed shark. Around 11:30, Lila announced she was taking the kids to the playground by the beach. There was this fancy setup near the water, swings, slides, climbing structures, all of it designed to look natural and eco-friendly, while probably costing more than a small house. "You coming?" she asked me, but it was clear from her tone that she hoped I'd say no. "Yeah, actually," I said, grabbing my phone. "Thought I'd take some family photos. You know, capture the memories." Something flickered across her face. Annoyance? Fear? She recovered quickly, plastering on a smile. "Great. That's great." The playground was about a 5-minute walk from the pavilion, down a winding path lined with palm trees and tropical flowers that were definitely not native to Florida, but had been imported to maintain the paradise aesthetic. The kids ran ahead, Ben making race car noises and Mia calling dibs on the highest swing. I hung back, phone in hand, pretending to fiddle with the camera settings while really just watching. Watching Lila check her phone. Watching her glance around like she was looking for someone. Watching her tell the kids to play for a few minutes while she made a quick call. That's when I saw him. Grant, emerging from behind a cluster of palm trees like some kind of rom-com love interest. Except this wasn't romantic, and it definitely wasn't funny. He walked toward Lila with this confident stride, and she lit up when she saw him. Actually lit up, her whole face transforming in a way I hadn't seen directed at me in years. I should have announced myself. Should have walked over there and interrupted whatever was about to happen. But something stopped me. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the part of my brain that needed to see it with my own eyes to really believe it. Maybe just good old-fashioned stupidity. They talked for maybe 30 seconds, standing close. Too close for colleagues. Definitely too close for a married woman and her boss. Lila kept glancing over at the kids. My kids, our kids, who were completely oblivious, playing tag around the jungle gym like nothing was wrong. And then it happened. Grant reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind Lila's ear. That move, that classic, cliché, romantic movie move, and pulled her in. And she let him. She didn't pull away, didn't push him back, didn't do any of the things a faithful wife should do. She just tilted her head up and kissed him back. There she was, my wife, the mother of my children, standing behind a palm tree about 50 feet from where our 10-year-old daughter was showing our 7-year-old son how to pump his legs on the swing, lips locked with her boss like they were the stars of some trashy reality show. I stood there, frozen, my phone still in my hand. I should have been taking pictures of my kids. Instead, I was getting a front row seat to the destruction of my marriage. The kiss lasted maybe 10 seconds. 10 seconds that felt like 10 hours. When they finally broke apart, Lila was smiling. Actually smiling, in a way that made my stomach turn. And that's when I heard it. A small gasp. I turned my head, and there was Camille, Lila's sister, standing about 10 feet away from me with a glass of lemonade in her hand and an expression that can only be described as, "Oh shit." Our eyes met. Hers went wide. Mine stayed cold. She froze like a deer in headlights, and I could practically see the calculations running through her head. What to say, how to play this, whether to pretend she hadn't seen me seeing them. I smiled. Not a happy smile. Not even a sad smile. The kind of smile that said, "Yeah, I saw it. And yeah, you saw me see it." And yeah, you're gonna remember this moment for the rest of your life. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. I raised my phone, snapped a photo of my kids playing. Just my kids, exactly what a good dad would do, and walked back toward the pavilion without saying a single word. Because what do you say in that moment? What possible combination of words could capture the feeling of watching your entire life implode in real time while your children play innocently in the background? So I said nothing. I just smiled and kept walking. Now, here's the thing about catching your wife cheating. Most people have this idea that you're supposed to explode immediately. Scream, throw things, make a scene that'll get you kicked out of the resort and possibly arrested for disturbing the peace. It's the Jerry Springer approach to infidelity, complete with chair throwing and bleeping out every other word. Very dramatic, very cathartic, very stupid. Me? I went back to the buffet and got another plate of pancakes. Because if you're going to catch your wife swapping spit with her boss while your kids play tag 50 feet away, you might as well do it on a full stomach. The pancakes were pretty damn good, too, fluffy, buttery, with this caramelized banana topping that probably had more calories than my entire weekly intake. But you know what? I earned those calories. I earned every single one of them by being the idiot who thought his marriage was solid. I sat down at one of the beachfront tables, fork in hand, watching the ocean roll in and out like nothing catastrophic had just happened. A waiter came by. Kid couldn't have been more than 20, with that eager-to-please resort employee smile, and asked if I needed anything else. Yeah, I said, cutting into my pancake stack. You got any whiskey? He blinked. Sir, it's 11:30 in the morning. Is that a no? I can get you a mimosa. Make it a double. He scurried off, probably adding a note to my file that I was a potential problem guest. Whatever. I was officially past caring about maintaining appearances. The mimosa arrived. Barely any orange juice, mostly champagne, exactly what I needed. I sipped it and watched the other families enjoying their vacation. There was a couple teaching their toddler to walk in the sand. Another family was attempting a group photo, the dad trying to wrangle 3 kids who all wanted to look in different directions. Normal family stuff. The kind of stuff I thought I was signing up for when I married Lila 12 years ago. 12 years. We'd been married for 12 years. Together for 15 if you count the dating years. 15 years of my life invested in a woman who was apparently more interested in climbing the corporate ladder by literally climbing her boss. The math was depressing, so I focused on my pancakes instead. That's when Lila came back, kids in tow, looking perfectly composed except for the slight flush in her cheeks that could have been from the sun or from making out with Grant Turner behind a palm tree. Tough to say, really. There you are, she said brightly, like I was a lost puppy she'd been searching for. The kids wanted more fruit. Right, guys? Mia and Ben nodded enthusiastically, already eyeing the watermelon station like it held the secrets to eternal happiness. I watched them run off, oblivious to the fact that their mother was a lying, cheating. You okay? Lila asked, sitting down across from me. You look weird. Weird. I took another sip of my mimosa. I'm great. Living the dream. Literally. This is a dream vacation. She studied my face, trying to figure out if I was being sarcastic or genuine. Good luck with that, sweetheart. I'd been practicing my poker face since about 2 minutes after watching you tongue wrestle your boss. Well, good, she said slowly. Because I have to attend another work session this afternoon. Just a couple hours. Team strategy meeting. Strategy meeting, I repeated. That what we're calling it now? Her eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just seems like a lot of meetings for a vacation. But hey, what do I know? I just fix tractors and do man things. Before she could respond, Camille appeared out of nowhere like a guilt-ridden ghost, clutching her lemonade glass so hard I thought it might shatter. She looked like she'd spent the last 20 minutes having a panic attack in the resort bathroom, which she probably had. Ryan, she said, her voice unnaturally high. Can we talk? Sure, I said, gesturing to the empty chair. Pull up a seat. Want some pancakes? They're excellent. Really takes the edge off watching your sister. Privately. She cut me off, her eyes darting between me and Lila. Can we talk privately? Lila looked between us, confused and increasingly suspicious. What's going on? Nothing, Camille said too quickly. Just family stuff. Wedding gift stuff. For Rachel's wedding. You know, boring logistics. Rachel was their cousin. She wasn't getting married. Camille was a terrible liar, which almost made me like her more. Almost. Fine, Lila said, standing up. I need to check in with Grant anyway, with the team. I need to check in with the team. Freudian slip much? She walked off, and Camille immediately leaned in, her voice dropping to a panicked whisper. Ryan, listen, I don't know what you think you saw. I think I saw my wife kissing her boss while our children played in the background. But hey, maybe I need glasses. Maybe it was just a really aggressive handshake. She went pale. Oh God, you really saw. Yeah, Camille, I really saw. Thanks for the front row seat, by the way. Very considerate of you to witness my public humiliation. I didn't know you were there. I just came to check on the kids and she stopped, realizing what she'd just admitted. Look, it's not what it looks like. Really, I leaned back in my chair, genuinely curious now, because it looked like my wife is having an affair with her boss. So if it's not that, I'm dying to know what alternative explanation you've got. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. She looked like a fish trying to breathe on land, which was oddly satisfying to watch. How long? I asked, my voice calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that comes right before a Category 5 hurricane makes landfall. Ryan. How long? She swallowed hard. I don't know the details. I swear I don't. But there have been signs. Since maybe 6 months ago. The late nights, the private meetings, the way she talks about him. 6 months. I did the math. 6 months of late nights at the office. 6 months of team dinners and networking events. 6 months of me being a complete idiot, taking care of our kids while my wife was out auditioning for her own personal reality show called The Adulterer's Apprentice. I'm sorry, Camille whispered, and for once, she actually sounded sincere. I didn't know how to tell you, or if I should tell you. I mean, it's not really my place, and I thought maybe it would blow over and save it. I stood up, leaving my half-finished pancakes behind. You want to help? Keep your mouth shut for the next 24 hours. Can you do that? She nodded frantically. What are you going to do? I smiled. Not the sad smile from earlier. Not even an angry smile. This was something different. Something calculated. I'm going to enjoy my vacation, Camille. Spend quality time with my kids. Maybe hit the resort spa. Get one of those hot stone massages. You know, really soak in the amenities. That's it. For now. I picked up my mimosa, finished it in one long gulp, and set the glass down with a decisive clink. Oh, and Camille, when this is over, and Lila asks how you could let this happen without warning her, tell her the truth. You tried. You really did. But I was just too calm about the whole thing. Too reasonable. She'll believe that. I walked away, leaving her sitting there looking confused and terrified, which was exactly how I wanted her. Because here's what people don't understand about revenge. It's not about the explosion. It's about the precision, the planning, the careful dismantling of someone's entire world while they're too distracted by their own arrogance to notice the foundation crumbling beneath them. Lila wanted to play games. Fine, but she was playing checkers, and I was about to introduce her to chess. That night, the company was hosting what they called their annual awards gala, which was basically corporate speak for let's get dressed up, give each other meaningless awards, and pretend we're more important than we actually are. Black tie optional, cocktails mandatory, speeches inevitable. The kind of event where middle management gets to cosplay as successful business moguls for an evening while PowerPoint presentations run in the background and everyone pretends to care. I spent the afternoon with the kids at the pool, acting like absolutely nothing was wrong. We played Marco Polo until Ben accidentally inhaled half the pool and came up coughing dramatically like he'd been attacked by a shark. Mia showed me her underwater handstands approximately 47 times, each one supposedly better than the last, though they all looked identical to me. Normal dad stuff. The kind of stuff that keeps you grounded when your entire marriage is revealed to be a sham. Lila was conspicuously absent all afternoon, allegedly in meetings. I didn't ask questions, didn't text, didn't give her the satisfaction of knowing I cared where she was or who she was with. Instead, I ordered room service for the kids, $50 chicken fingers that tasted exactly like the $5 ones from any normal restaurant, and helped them pick out their fancy outfits for the gala. Do I have to wear a tie? Ben whined, holding up the clip-on tie I'd packed like it was a torture device. Yes, buddy. It's a fancy party. Everyone wears ties to fancy parties. Even you. Especially me. I'm going to look so fancy that people will think I'm a secret millionaire. He giggled at that, which made the whole lying to my kids about our family falling apart thing slightly more bearable. Slightly. Lila breezed into the room around 5:30, looking annoyingly flawless in a way that made me wonder if she'd spent the afternoon at the spa or in Grant's bed. Probably both, knowing her efficiency with time management. She was wearing this emerald green dress that I'd never seen before. Definitely new, definitely expensive, definitely purchased with the company credit card under the guise of professional attire. "Sorry I'm late," she said, not sounding sorry at all. "The strategy session ran long. But I'm here now. Let me just shower and change, and we'll head down together." Together. Like we were a unit. Like we were a functional family instead of a husband, a wife, and the ticking time bomb of her infidelity waiting to explode. "Take your time," I said pleasantly. "I'll get the kids ready." She disappeared into the bathroom, and that's when I saw it. Sitting on the dresser, right next to her makeup bag and phone charger, was a small USB drive. The kind companies use for presentations and file transfers. It had a little label on it that said EI Gala 2025 in Lila's neat handwriting. I stared at that USB drive for a solid 10 seconds, my brain working through the possibilities. The gala. There would be presentations, awards, speeches, probably some kind of slideshow showcasing the company's achievements, the team's hard work, all that corporate propaganda that makes people feel important. And Lila, being the overachiever she was, had probably volunteered to help put it together. I picked up the USB drive, turning it over in my hand. It was light, innocuous, the kind of thing you'd barely notice if it disappeared for a few minutes. Through the bathroom door, I could hear the shower running, Lila humming that same pop song from this morning. "Kids," I said casually, "I'm going to run down to the lobby real quick. Need to grab something from the gift shop. Stay here, watch TV, don't open the door for anyone except me or Mom." "Got it. Can you get me candy?" Ben asked immediately. "Sure, buddy. I'll get you candy." I pocketed the USB drive and headed downstairs, my heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with taking the stairs instead of the elevator. The business center was on the second floor, a small room with 2 computers, a printer, and the kind of harsh fluorescent lighting that makes everyone look like they're suffering from a terminal illness. It was empty, thank God, because I really didn't need witnesses for what I was about to do. I plugged in the USB drive and waited for it to load. The folder opened up, revealing exactly what I'd expected: PowerPoint presentations, photo galleries, company statistics, all meticulously organized because Lila was nothing if not thorough. There was a folder labeled Team Photos Resort that had about 200 pictures from the past 2 days. Group shots at dinner, candid photos by the pool, people laughing and toasting with wine glasses. And then I found it. Photo number 147. Lila and Grant, behind the palm tree, mid-kiss. Someone had taken it, probably another coworker being cute, thinking they were capturing a candid moment, without realizing they were documenting an affair. The angle was perfect, the lighting was good, and there was absolutely zero ambiguity about what was happening. I sat there for a minute, just looking at it. My wife, her boss, the end of my marriage, captured in high-resolution digital format. Then I opened the main PowerPoint presentation, the one labeled Awards Ceremony Final. It was your standard corporate nonsense. Welcome slide, mission statement, individual award slides for employees who'd exceeded expectations, a closing slide thanking everyone for their dedication. Boring, professional, exactly what you'd expect. I scrolled through, looking for the perfect spot. There, right after the Employee of the Month awards section, right before the closing remarks. That's where it would go. I created a new slide. Title: Employee of the Month, for going the extra mile, and then some. Subtitle: Recognizing Outstanding Commitment to Company Relations. And then I inserted the photo. Lila and Grant, kissing behind the palm tree, tropical breeze, pure unadulterated betrayal, now immortalized in a corporate PowerPoint presentation. I adjusted the image size to fill the entire slide, making sure every detail was visible. The way his hand rested on her waist. The way she leaned into him. The way neither of them looked like they were thinking about their respective spouses or children or basic human decency. Perfect. I saved the file, ejected the USB drive, and headed back upstairs. The whole operation took maybe 10 minutes. Ben was watching cartoons, Mia was texting her friends, and Lila was still in the shower, completely oblivious to the fact that her life was about to become a cautionary tale about why you shouldn't cheat on your spouse at a company retreat. I placed the USB drive back on the dresser, exactly where I'd found it, and sat down on the bed like nothing had happened. Because nothing had happened. Not yet. But tonight, at the gala, in front of her entire company, her family, her boss's wife, and approximately 200 witnesses, tonight, something was definitely going to happen. Lila emerged from the bathroom 20 minutes later, makeup flawless, hair perfect, dress hugging her in all the right places. She looked like $1,000,000, which was ironic considering she'd just become worthless to me. "How do I look?" she asked, doing a little spin. "Like you're about to have a very memorable evening," I said honestly. She smiled, completely missing the subtext. "You're sweet. Now come on, we don't want to be late." I told Grant. I told everyone. We'd be there early. "Wouldn't miss it for the world," I said, standing up and straightening my tie. Literally, nothing could keep me away from this event. She grabbed the USB drive from the dresser, slipped it into her clutch, and headed for the door. I followed, fighting the urge to smile. Tonight was going to be interesting. The gala was being held in the resort's grand ballroom, which was one of those spaces that tries way too hard to be impressive. Crystal chandeliers, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean, tables draped in white linen with centerpieces that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Everything was gold and ivory and expensive, designed to make people feel like they'd achieved something significant in their lives beyond choosing the right employer. We arrived fashionably on time, which in corporate speak means 15 minutes early so you can schmooze before the actual event starts. The room was already filling up with Lila's co-workers and their spouses, everyone dressed to the nines, air-kissing and complimenting each other's outfits with the sincerity of politicians during election season. The bar was open, thank God, because I was going to need alcohol to get through this without my face giving away what was about to happen. Ryan. Grant appeared out of nowhere, hand extended, smile plastered on his face like we were old buddies instead of two guys who'd never actually had a real conversation. "So glad you could make it. Lila's told me so much about you." "I'll bet she has, you smug bastard." "Grant," I said, shaking his hand with just enough pressure to make it slightly uncomfortable. "Great party. Really captures that whole 'we're important people doing important things' vibe." He laughed, completely missing the sarcasm. "Well, we like to celebrate our achievements. It's been a banner year for Elevation Interiors." "I'll bet," I said, glancing at Lila, who was conveniently avoiding eye contact. "Seems like everyone's been working really hard. Lots of late nights. Lots of collaboration." "Exactly." Grant clapped me on the shoulder like we were teammates. "That's the spirit. Your wife is one of our top performers. Absolutely indispensable." Indispensable. That's one word for it. Lila finally looked at me, her eyes sending warning signals that I cheerfully ignored. "Honey, why don't you get a drink? I need to help set up the presentation." "Oh, I wouldn't miss this presentation for anything," I said, heading toward the bar. "I have a feeling it's going to be unforgettable." I ordered a whiskey. Neat, because tonight called for the hard stuff, and found our assigned table. The kids were at the children's table in the corner, probably thrilled to be eating chicken fingers with other kids instead of sitting through corporate speeches. Camille was already seated at our table, looking like she might vomit at any moment. She'd clearly spent the afternoon in a state of panic, wondering what I was planning and whether she should warn Lila. She hadn't warned her. I could tell because Lila was up at the front of the room, laughing with Grant and the AV guy, completely relaxed and unsuspecting. "Ryan," Camille whispered urgently as I sat down. "What are you going to do?" "Watch a presentation," I said innocently. "Support my wife's professional endeavors. Be a good spouse. You know, typical husband stuff." "You're scaring me." "Good." I took a sip of my whiskey. "You should be scared. You've been watching this train wreck for 6 months and didn't say a word." She went pale but didn't argue, because what could she say? She'd known. They'd all known, probably. The whole company had likely watched Lila and Grant's professional relationship develop into something decidedly unprofessional, and nobody had thought to maybe give the husband a heads up. The lights dimmed. Everyone found their seats. A woman I didn't know, probably someone from HR, stepped up to the microphone and started the evening with the kind of welcome speech that makes paint drying seem exciting. She thanked everyone for coming, praised the company's growth, and introduced Grant as the visionary leader who makes it all possible. Grant took the stage to polite applause, launching into a speech about teamwork, dedication, and thinking outside the box, which is corporate speak for, I don't actually have any new ideas, but I'm going to act like I do. He was good at it, I'll give him that. Confident, charismatic, the kind of guy who could sell ice to Eskimos or affairs to married women. And now, Grant said, gesturing to the screen behind him, let's take a look at some of the incredible work our team has accomplished this year. The lights dimmed further. The projector hummed to life. And there it was, Lila's carefully crafted PowerPoint presentation, starting with the company logo and mission statement in elegant typography. I sat back in my chair, whiskey in hand, and waited. The slides progressed normally at first. Photos of completed projects, fancy living rooms, corporate offices, restaurant redesigns. Statistics about client satisfaction and revenue growth. Individual employee highlights. Each person getting their moment of recognition with their photo and a brief description of their contributions. Then came the Employee of the Month section. 3 people were being honored, some junior designer, a project manager, and someone from accounting. Each got their slide, their photo, their little paragraph of praise. Polite applause followed each one. And then, the screen changed. Employee of the Month, for going the extra mile, and then some. Dead silence. You could hear a champagne bubble pop. There, blown up to probably 8 feet wide on the projection screen, in full high-definition glory, was the photo. Lila and Grant, behind the palm tree, mid-kiss, her hand on his chest, his hand on her waist, both of them looking like they'd forgotten the rest of the world existed. The subtitle appeared beneath the image, recognizing outstanding commitment to company relations. The room erupted, not with applause, with gasps, shocked whispers, and the sound of someone's wine glass hitting the floor and shattering. I watched it all unfold in slow motion, like I was watching a nature documentary about the collapse of an ecosystem. Grant's face went from tan to white to red in about 3 seconds flat. He turned to look at the screen, then at the AV guy, then at Lila, his mouth opening and closing like a fish drowning in air. Lila went completely pale, and I mean pale, like all the blood had drained from her body and pooled somewhere around her designer heels. She stood there frozen at the side of the stage, one hand clutching her champagne glass, the other pressed against her mouth in horror. Camille made this strangled sound next to me and dropped her wine glass. It shattered on the table, red wine spreading across the white linen like a crime scene. But the best part, the absolute cherry on top of this disaster Sunday, was Grant's wife. I hadn't even known she was here. Hadn't seen her come in. But there she was, sitting 3 tables away, a blonde woman in a silver dress who'd been chatting pleasantly with other spouses just moments ago. She stood up slowly, her chair scraping against the floor in the silence, and every single person in that ballroom turned to watch her. She walked toward the stage with the kind of purposeful stride that suggested she'd been waiting for this moment, maybe not consciously, but somewhere deep down where wise know things they don't want to admit. Her heels clicked against the floor, click, 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 like a countdown to detonation. Grant saw her coming. "Jennifer, honey, I can explain." Slap. The sound echoed through the ballroom like a gunshot. Grant's head snapped to the side, and I swear I could see the outline of her hand forming on his cheek in real time. "Explain it to your lawyer," she said, her voice crystal clear despite the chaos. Then she turned and walked out, dignity intact, marriage destroyed, but at least with her self-respect. The room exploded into chaos. People were standing up, whispering frantically, pulling out phones to take pictures of the screen before someone had the sense to shut off the projector. The HR woman was trying to restore order, Grant was chasing after his wife, and Lila just stood there like a statue, frozen in her worst nightmare. And me? I stood up, raised my whiskey glass toward the now-blank screen where my wife's betrayal had just been broadcast to 200 people, and said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Cheers, everyone. Now that's what I call strong team bonding." A few people laughed, nervous, uncomfortable laughter, but laughter nonetheless. Most just stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Ben appeared at my elbow, tugging on my jacket. "Dad, why is everyone looking at Mommy?" I smiled down at him, ruffling his hair. "Because she's famous now, buddy. Go get some dessert, champ. I hear they've got chocolate cake." He shrugged and ran off. blissfully unaware that his mother had just become the star of the worst PowerPoint presentation in corporate history. I finished my whiskey, set the glass down on the table with a decisive clink, and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I could hear Lila starting to cry, people arguing, chaos spreading like wildfire through the ballroom. But I didn't look back. I'd seen everything I needed to see. I made it approximately 30 feet down the hallway before I heard the rapid click-clack of heels behind me, getting faster and more frantic with each step. Part of me wanted to break into a full sprint just to see if Lila would actually chase me through the resort in a cocktail dress. But I'm a mature adult, so I settled for walking slightly faster and pretending I couldn't hear her calling my name. Ryan. Ryan, wait. Please. The hallway was one of those long, elegant corridors with soft lighting and abstract art on the walls. The kind of space designed for peaceful strolls and quiet contemplation, not for public marital meltdowns. A couple walking toward us from the opposite direction took one look at Lila's tear-streaked face and my stone-cold expression and immediately ducked into a side hallway. Smart people. They understood the universal rule of hotel etiquette. Never get involved in someone else's relationship drama. Ryan, stop. I stopped. Not because she asked, but because I'd reached the outdoor terrace and figured this was as good a place as any for the confrontation that was about to happen. The terrace overlooked the ocean, fairy lights strung overhead, the sound of waves crashing against the shore providing a soundtrack to what was about to be the worst conversation of Lila's life. Romantic setting, really. Shame about the circumstances. She caught up to me, breathless and crying, mascara starting to run in those little black rivers that would have been tragic if I had any sympathy left in my body. Spoiler alert, I didn't. Ryan, please, it's not what it looks like. I turned to face her, genuinely curious about what gymnastics her brain was about to perform to explain away photographic evidence of her tongue down her boss's throat. This should be good. Oh, good, I said calmly, leaning against the terrace railing. Because it looked like you were kissing your boss while our kids played in the background. So if it's actually interpretive dance or some kind of advanced CPR technique, I'm all ears. Really, educate me. It was a mistake. A moment of weakness. It didn't mean anything. A moment of weakness. I nodded thoughtfully, like I was actually considering this explanation. Interesting. And how long has this particular moment been going on? Because your sister mentioned something about 6 months. Her face went from pale to sheet white. Camille told you? Camille didn't have to tell me anything. I have eyes, Lila. And apparently, I'm the only person in your entire company who wasn't already aware that you and Grant were playing house. That's not. We weren't. Save it. I held up a hand. I really don't want to hear the details. I saw enough. Actually, you know what? About 200 other people also saw enough, so thanks for that. Really looking forward to explaining to our kids why mommy's suddenly internet famous. She started crying harder, which normally would have made me feel something. Guilt, maybe. The urge to comfort her. But apparently, watching your wife cheat on you while your children play nearby has a way of killing that empathy instinct stone dead. Please, Ryan, not in front of everyone. Can we please just go somewhere private and talk about this? Oh, now you want privacy? I laughed, and it came out bitter enough to curdle milk. That's hilarious. Where was this concern for privacy when you were making out with your boss at a company retreat? Or were you counting on me being too stupid to notice? Because honestly, that's what pisses me off the most. Not even that you cheated. I mean, that sucks, don't get me wrong. But that you thought I was dumb enough not to figure it out. I never thought you were dumb. No? So you just thought I was, what? Blind? Conveniently oblivious? So wrapped up in my blue-collar job that I wouldn't notice my wife was auditioning for her own personal soap opera? A small crowd had started to gather near the terrace entrance. Other gala attendees, drawn by the commotion like moths to a dumpster fire. I recognized a few faces from the company. People who'd probably watched Lila and Grant's affair develop over months and said nothing. They stood there, drinks in hand, pretending not to stare while absolutely staring. Everyone's looking, Lila whispered desperately. Please, can we just... Relax, Lila. Everyone already saw it. You're trending locally by now. Probably got your own hashtag. What should it be? Hashtag boss goals. Hashtag networking gone wrong. Hashtag interior design meets exterior affair. This isn't funny. You're right. It's not funny. It's hilarious. There's a difference. That's when Camille appeared. pushing through the small crowd like she was on a mission. She'd changed out of her wine-soaked dress into something else equally expensive and impractical, her face a mask of manufactured shock and concern. The performance was almost believable if you didn't know she'd been sitting on this information for half a year. "Oh my God, Lila." Camille rushed over, throwing her arms around her sister in a show of solidarity that would have been touching if it wasn't complete bullshit. "I can't believe this is happening. How could someone do this to you?" I actually laughed out loud at that one. "Wow, Camille, that's impressive. You should get an Oscar for that performance. Really convincing." She turned to me, eyes wide with fake innocence. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that you knew about this for 6 months and didn't say a word. Remember? This morning? When you told me you'd noticed signs since 6 months ago? Or did you forget that conversation already?" Her face fell. Lila pulled back from the hug, staring at her sister with a mixture of betrayal and dawning realization. "You knew?" I didn't. It wasn't," Camille stammered, looking between us like a cornered animal trying to decide which way to run. "Oh, she knew," I confirmed cheerfully. "She was actually there yesterday when I caught you and Grant playing tonsil hockey behind the palm tree. Gave me this great deer-in-headlights look. Really memorable moment we shared. Thanks for that. By the way, Camille, hope the lemonade was good." Camille's mouth opened and closed several times. No sound came out. For once in her life, she had absolutely nothing to say, and it was beautiful. "You saw them?" Lila turned to her sister, her voice rising. "You saw us, and you didn't tell me Ryan was there?" "I didn't think. I wasn't sure if..." "If what?" I interjected. "If I'd noticed my wife cheating on me right in front of our children?" "Yeah, I noticed. Turns out I'm observant like that. Really inconvenient for everyone involved, I know." More people had gathered now. I could see faces pressed against windows, phones out, definitely recording this disaster. Tomorrow's resort gossip was being written in real time, and we were the headliners. "Ryan, please," Lila begged, reaching for my arm. I stepped back before she could touch me. "Please, let's go somewhere private. Let me explain. I'll tell you everything. Just not here. Not like this." I looked at her. Really looked at her. This woman I'd spent 15 years of my life with. The mother of my children. The person I'd trusted completely, stupidly, blindly. She looked small suddenly, diminished, like someone had let the air out of her, and all that was left was this deflated version of the person I'd married. And I felt nothing. Not anger anymore. Not hurt. Just this cold, clear certainty that whatever we'd had was over, had been over for months probably, and I'd been too busy being a good husband and father to notice. "You want to explain?" I said quietly. "Fine. Here's your chance. Explain to all these nice people." I gestured to our growing audience. "How you ended up kissing your boss while our 10-year-old daughter was learning to pump her legs on a swing set 50 feet away. Explain how that happens. I'm genuinely curious." She just stood there, crying, unable to form words. That's what I thought. I straightened up, pulling out my phone. "You know what? I'm going to check on our kids. Make sure they're okay. Make sure they didn't see their mother's professional life implode in front of 200 witnesses. You stay here. Work on your explanation. Practice it. Get it really polished. Because you're going to need a good one when you try to explain this to Mia and Ben." I walked past her, past Camille, past the crowd of onlookers who parted like the Red Sea. Behind me, I heard Lila collapse into sobs, heard Camille trying to comfort her, heard the whispers and murmurs of people who'd just witnessed the social equivalent of a car crash. And I smiled. Not because I was happy, but because for the first time in 6 months, probably longer, I was finally seeing things clearly. And what I saw was freedom. I found the kids exactly where I'd left them. At the dessert table, engaged in what appeared to be a competitive eating contest involving chocolate cake, ice cream, and alarming quantities of whipped cream. Ben had frosting smeared across his face like war paint, and Mia was explaining to another kid why her dad was the coolest because he let them have 2 desserts. If only she knew her cool dad had just orchestrated the public destruction of her mother's career and reputation. Parent of the Year material, right here. "Dad," Ben spotted me first, running over with chocolate-covered hands. "Can we go night swimming? Some kid said the pool has lights, and it's super cool. Maybe tomorrow, buddy," I said, wiping his face with a napkin. "Right now, I need you and Mia to hang out in the kids' lounge for a bit. They've got movies and games." "Sound good." Is Mom coming? Mia asked, looking past me toward the ballroom entrance where chaos was presumably still unfolding. Mom's got some work stuff to handle, I said, which was technically true. Her work life was currently being handled by approximately 200 witnesses and probably social media by now. But I'll come get you in an hour, okay? And tomorrow we'll do whatever you want. Beach, pool, arcade, you name it. They bought it because kids are trusting and innocent and don't yet understand that sometimes adults destroy their entire lives in the span of one PowerPoint slide. The resort staff, bless them, were trained to handle situations exactly like this, meaning they whisked my kids away to supervised fun without asking uncomfortable questions about why Dad looked like he was holding it together with duct tape and spite. I headed back to our room, needing a moment alone before the next inevitable confrontation. The hallway was blissfully empty, the thick carpet absorbing my footsteps, the abstract art on the walls looking more meaningful now that my life had become its own kind of abstract disaster. I used the keycard, stepped inside, and immediately poured myself a drink from the minibar, a $20 tiny bottle of whiskey that tasted like regret and poor decision-making. Perfect. That's when I heard voices in the hallway. Multiple voices. Loud voices. The unmistakable sound of Lila's family descending like a plague of judgmental locusts. I opened the door before they could knock, because at this point, why delay the inevitable? Standing there was the entire dysfunctional crew. Lila's parents, Richard and Patricia, her sisters Camille and the younger one, Sophie, and some cousin I'd met maybe twice whose name I couldn't remember if my life depended on it. They looked like an angry mob from a small-town drama, minus the pitchforks and torches, though I wouldn't have put those past them either. Ryan. Richard pushed his way in first, his face red with that particular shade of anger that comes from having your family's dirty laundry aired at a luxury resort. We need to talk. Now. Sure, I said, gesturing to the room like a gracious host. Come on in. Minibar's open. Help yourselves. Fair warning, though. Everything costs about 5 times what it should. Patricia followed her husband, clutching her pearls, literally clutching them, like she was in a Tennessee Williams play. Sophie looked uncomfortable, like she'd been dragged along against her will. Camille slunk in last, avoiding eye contact, probably hoping I'd forgotten about her earlier confession. How could you? Richard started, his voice that particular volume that's trying to be quiet, but is actually just aggressive whispering. How could you embarrass our family like this? In front of all those people? Do you have any idea what you've done? I took a sip of my overpriced whiskey, really savoring the moment. How could I? That's an interesting question, Richard. Let me think. Oh, I know. I caught your daughter cheating on me with her boss, and instead of quietly accepting it like some kind of doormat, I decided to make it a teachable moment. You know, actions have consequences, and all that parenting wisdom you definitely taught your daughters. That's not. You didn't have to. Patricia sputtered, her face going through several shades of scandalized. There are ways to handle these things privately. With dignity. Dignity, I repeated, nodding slowly. Right? Because there's so much dignity in screwing your boss at a company retreat while your husband takes care of your kids. Really classy stuff. I'm sure Emily Post has a whole chapter on that. Don't you dare speak to my wife like that, Richard growled, stepping closer. He was doing that thing men do when they want to seem threatening, but aren't actually going to do anything because they've never thrown a punch in their lives. I'd seen tougher guys at the DMV. Or what, Richard? You'll yell at me some more? Write me a strongly worded letter? I'm terrified. Really. Sophie cleared her throat. Ryan, listen, we're all upset. Are you though? I turned to her, genuinely curious. Are you actually upset about what Lila did? Or are you just upset that everyone found out? Because those are two very different things. Silence. Beautiful, telling silence. That's when the door burst open and Lila stumbled in, still crying. Makeup completely destroyed now, looking like she'd been through an emotional car wash. She stopped when she saw her family, her face crumpling even more if that was possible. Mom, Dad, don't. Richard cut her off, but his tone had softened considerably. We'll talk about this later. Right now, we need to fix this situation. Fix it. I laughed, and it came out sharp enough to cut glass. How exactly do you plan to fix this? You got a time machine? A memory eraser? Because short of that, I'm not seeing a lot of options here. Patricia moved toward Lila, maternal instinct overriding everything else. Sweetie, why don't you sit down? Oh, good, I interrupted. Everyone's here. Perfect timing, actually. Saves me from having to repeat myself. I walked over to the dresser, pulling out my wallet and the small notebook I always carried, force of habit from years of jotting down measurements and equipment specs. Lila watched me with red, puffy eyes, probably wondering what I was planning next. Ryan, please, she whispered. Can we talk? Just us? Please. We are talking, I said pleasantly. We're all talking. It's a family discussion. You love those, remember? Always insisted on family dinners, family meetings, family game nights. Well, congratulations. This is the best family event we've had in years. This isn't funny, Richard started again. You keep saying that. But from where I'm standing, it's pretty hilarious. Tragic, sure. Devastating, absolutely. But also, kind of funny. In a dark, cosmic irony sort of way. Lila moved closer, and before I could step back, she dropped to her knees. Literally dropped to her knees like some kind of melodramatic movie scene. Hands clasped together, tears streaming down her face. Ryan, please. I'm begging you. I'll fix this. I swear to God, I'll fix everything. I'll quit my job. We'll go to counseling. Whatever you want. Just please, please don't do this. Think about the kids. Think about our family. The room went silent. Everyone watching this performance. This last-ditch attempt at salvaging something that was already dead and buried. I looked down at her, my wife of 12 years, the mother of my children, on her knees in a hotel room begging for forgiveness she didn't deserve and wasn't going to get. Lila, I said calmly, quietly, with more control than I thought I possessed. You already fixed it. You just didn't fix it with me. That's not. Get up. My voice was cold now. Seriously, get up. This is embarrassing for both of us, but mostly you. She stayed on her knees, sobbing harder, and I felt exactly zero sympathy. Zero. My empathy gauge had flatlined somewhere around the moment I watched her kiss another man while our daughter learned to swing. I pulled out my room key from my wallet, then slowly twisted off my wedding ring. That simple gold band I'd worn for 12 years without ever taking it off. It left a pale line on my finger, a ghost of commitment that no longer existed. Here, I said, handing her the key card. Rooms paid for through the week. Enjoy it. Then the ring. I dropped it into her outstretched palm where it landed with a small, final clink. Her family was watching in horror now, like they were witnessing an execution. Good. They should watch. They should see what happens when you enable someone's bad behavior for so long that they think they're untouchable. Finally, I pulled out the folded piece of paper I'd prepared earlier, while she was in the shower, while I was supposedly just getting ready. I'd spent that time on my phone, making calls, sending emails, moving pieces around on the chessboard. And this, I said, handing her the note. Read it later. Or now. Your choice. She unfolded it with shaking hands. I kept it simple. Check your bank app. I already moved my account. And the car title. And the kids' trust fund. Enjoy explaining that to HR. Also, Grant's wife has a lawyer. Her name is Sarah Mitchell. You'll probably be hearing from her soon. Best of luck with the deposition. Ryan. The color drained from her face as she read it. Then read it again. Then looked up at me with an expression that can only be described as dawning horror mixed with the realization that she'd severely underestimated the guy who fixes tractors. You can't, she started. I already did. Joint account is now just my account. The car we bought last year? Turns out it's in my name because I have better credit. Funny how that works. And the trust fund for the kids? Also my account, set up by me, with me as the sole trustee. You're welcome to lawyer up and fight me on it. But that'll be expensive, and I'm guessing your legal funds are about to get tied up in Grant's divorce proceedings. Richard exploded. You son of a... Careful, I warned, my voice dropping to something dangerous. Very careful, because I've been remarkably calm about this whole situation, but I'm about 2 seconds away from losing that calm and saying things that'll make tonight's PowerPoint presentation look like a children's birthday party. He stopped, mouth open, probably realizing that pushing me further wasn't the smartest move. I grabbed my overnight bag from the closet. I'd packed it earlier, another preparation they hadn't noticed, and headed for the door. Wait. Lila scrambled to her feet. Where are you going? What about the kids? I'll get them in an hour. We'll stay in a different room tonight. Tomorrow, we're going home. I'll figure out custody arrangements with my lawyer. You'll hear from them next week. Ryan. I stopped at the door, hand on the handle, and turned back one last time. You know what the worst part is, Lila? It's not that you cheated. People cheat. It happens. The worst part is that you did it here, at a family vacation, with our kids present, and you didn't even have the decency to be discreet. That's what kills me. You didn't even respect me enough to hide it properly. And with that, I walked out, closing the door on 12 years of marriage, 2 kids, a mortgage, and whatever future we might have had. Behind me, I heard Lila's sobs, her family's frantic whispers, the sound of everything falling apart. But I didn't look back. I was done looking back. A week later, I was back home in Ohio, sitting in my garage with a beer that was actually cold this time, no kids screaming in the background, and a silence that felt less lonely and more like peace. Funny how quickly you can adjust to a new normal when the old normal was built on lies and really expensive throw pillows. The fallout from the great PowerPoint incident of 2025, as I'd started calling it in my head, was even better than I'd imagined. Turns out, publicly humiliating your boss by exposing your affair with him at a company gala has some pretty significant career consequences. Who knew? Lila got fired 3 days after we returned. Not for the affair itself. Apparently that falls into some gray area of personal conduct. But because Grant's wife's lawyer argued that the relationship created a hostile work environment and potential liability issues. Something about power dynamics and company policy violations. The legal details went over my head, but the end result was crystal clear. Lila was out, her reputation was destroyed, and her LinkedIn profile now had a suspicious gap in employment that no amount of creative writing could explain away. Grant fared slightly better career-wise. He kept his job because apparently CEOs are harder to fire, but his personal life imploded spectacularly. His wife Jennifer didn't just divorce him. She took him to the cleaners so thoroughly that he was essentially working to pay her alimony and legal fees for the foreseeable future. Last I heard, he'd sold his BMW and was driving a Honda Civic. A used Honda Civic. From 2015. With manual windows. The schadenfreude was delicious. But the real prize, the absolute cherry on top of this disaster Sunday, was Camille. Sweet, judgmental Camille who'd spent years making snide comments about my cargo shorts and blue-collar job. She'd gone into what she called a spiritual retreat, but what everyone else recognized as hiding from the shame of being the sister who knew about the affair and said nothing. She'd apparently moved to some yoga commune in Colorado where she was finding herself and healing her chakras, and definitely not avoiding the family group. Chat where everyone blamed her for not warning Lila that I knew. I heard all this secondhand, of course, through the grapevine of mutual acquaintances and the occasional text from Sophie, who'd apparently decided I was the reasonable one in this whole mess. She sent me updates like I was watching a reality show, which honestly, I kind of was. The kids took it better than expected, which either meant I was handling it well, or they were going to need therapy in about 10 years. Probably both. We'd had the talk, the age-appropriate version where mommy and daddy still loved them but weren't going to live together anymore. And no, it wasn't their fault. And yes, they could still have 2 Christmases, which was apparently the selling point for Ben. They stayed with me most of the time now. Lila had visitation on weekends, when she wasn't too busy job hunting or dealing with the legal nightmare her life had become. The house felt different with just the 3 of us. Quieter, simpler, like someone had removed a layer of tension I hadn't realized was there. We played Guess Who's a Bad Liar on Friday nights, which was my twisted way of teaching them critical thinking skills. Mia was eerily good at it. Ben just picked everyone and declared them all liars, which was honestly a pretty solid life philosophy. I'd started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee with a woman from the gym who thought my story was incredibly bold instead of potentially psychotic. Progress. She laughed at my jokes, didn't expect me to pretend I cared about feng shui, and most importantly, wasn't secretly sleeping with her boss. The bar was low, but at least it existed. Sometimes, late at night when the kids were asleep and the house was quiet, I'd think back to that moment on the beach, watching Lila kiss Grant while our children played nearby, Camille standing there with her lemonade, the whole tableau of betrayal frozen in Florida sunshine. And you know what? I'd laugh. Not a bitter laugh anymore, but something lighter, almost grateful. Because that moment, as awful as it was, had given me clarity. It had shown me exactly who I'd married, who her family really was, and what I'd been tolerating for years without realizing it. The affair wasn't the problem. It was just the symptom of a marriage that had been dying slowly for years while I was too busy being a good husband and father to notice. The PowerPoint, that wasn't revenge. That was just truth with better production values. Sometimes people ask if I regret it. The public humiliation, the nuclear option, going scorched earth when I could have handled it quietly. And honestly, not even a little bit. Lila had made her choice publicly, with witnesses, with our kids playing in the background. I just made sure everyone else got to see what I'd seen. And the best part? The absolute final laugh. I didn't even need popcorn. Turns out, living well really is the best revenge. That, and a perfectly timed PowerPoint slide.